Nevada County. It's your friendly neighborhood political correspondent. Today, I'm really excited about our guest. It's Jeffrey Kirishian of Braver Angels, or the local Braver Angels affiliate. And I'm going to let him tell you all about that organization. So, hello, Mr. Kirishian.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm doing great. Good
to
be here.
I am so happy to have you. I love Braver Angels.
You've had some experience.
A little bit, yeah. I actually saw your first presentation when you came here to Nevada County.
Oh.
So could I, but before we dive into that though, I'd love to learn a little bit about you. What's your background?
Okay, so I am an educational psychologist in practice for about 45 years, 20 of which was in Tulare County. And then I moved up here in 1999 and doing kind of an early retirement, but I ended up going back to working in Nevada County. Became the Director of Student Services for the Nevada County Charter Cooperative. And so worked in schools. So I've had a lot of training in conflict resolution. So that's kind of helped me. When I heard about Braver Angels, I thought, wow, that sounds like a good idea, especially in the times we're having now.
Right. Oh, wow. Well, my kids went to a charter school.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Yuba River.
It's one of the schools.
Yep. I know that we were affiliated with you guys.
Yeah.
So tell me, how did you get involved with Braver Angels?
So, well, I've been involved with Braver Angels since 2016, I think, when it first came on this stage, so to speak. Braver Angels was created after that 2016 election, and there was a group of people who were concerned about the political divide that seemed to be happening way back then. And so they got a group of people together from both sides of the political spectrum, on the left and on the right, and they had a conversation that was facilitated by Bill Doherty, who was a family marriage therapist. And so he kind of used the skills of what do you do in a divorce situation to be able to help facilitate the communication of the two sides. Wow. And that was how Braver Angels got first started. And since then, they've become, you want me to go on about?
I would love it. That is such cool history. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So they've been offering, after that was really successful, they've been offering those kinds of opportunities, and now it's grown where it's now it's all the way across the nation. It's the largest grassroots organization working to bridge the political divide. And so Braver Angels, put a little plug in, braverangels.org is a website that anyone can go to. They have they have discussion topics that are revolving political divide. All of them are centered in what can we do to come together instead of divide ourselves apart. And so they have debates that are publicized, internet, Zoom meetings. They have classes in what do you do if you really disagree with someone, or what do you do if someone's really angry at you? How do you lower the temperature so you can communicate? They have all sorts of things. So I'd recommend people go to that website if you're interested in Braver Angels.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what happened, our involvement here in the community happened out of, there was a presentation that was sponsored by the League of Women Voters, and they brought a couple of members of Braver Angels from the Bay Area over to do a presentation. And during that presentation, it was at the college, and the place was packed. I think every seat was taken up, which was really good news.
I was in one of those seats.
Ah, okay.
Mm-hmm. So, it was in 2023-ish?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And so at the end of that presentation, well, the two gentlemen that came, they actually showed this technique called LAP, and it's an acronym, and they kind of demonstrated a little bit, answered some questions, and at the end, people were asked to fill out a survey if they wanted to have more, they showed some interest in it, and they wanted to follow up on that. So a bunch of people responded to that, and then because I had been involved in Braver Angels as a member since 2016, they asked me if I'd be willing to facilitate a group to further pursue practice lap. And so basically so now we have a group that meets on I guess now we're at the second Friday of every month at the Madeleine.
At the Helling Library?
The Nevada City Library.
Okay.
And it's available for people if they want to come and join us.
Okay. So tell me about LAP. That's an acronym?
Yes.
Okay.
An acronym. It stands for listen, acknowledge, pivot, and then perspective, LAP.
Okay.
The first part, listen, is a special kind of listening. It's not just hearing what a person's saying. It's also getting a real sense, listening for what is the person trying to convey, and not just the words that they're saying, but what's their perspective and what are their feelings about whatever they're concerned about. So, so that's the first part, the listening part. And then after, let's just say there's person A who's talking and person B who's listening. And then person B would acknowledge, that's the LA, they would acknowledge what person A said to see if they got the message correctly. And again, trying to get towards what's really going on in there from their perspective. What are their values? What drives their opinion about this? So sharing that, and then hopefully, if they get it right, that person A will say, yeah, that's right. Or if they don't get it exactly right, person A will go ahead and say, no, well, actually it's such and such, and would do some clarification. So let's assume that person B listened pretty well, got most of the message. So then, but person B may have a different opinion, which is usually what happens in a political conversation. And so person B would do something that isn't a common thing. They would say, I heard what you had to say, but I have a little different opinion. Would you like to hear it? It's called the pivot, because now you're switching from listening to person A, now person B can speak. If person A says, yeah, okay, I'd like to hear your perspective, then person B would do the P in LAP, and they would share their perspective. And the idea there is to speak in terms of using I messages, which are, you're talking about yourself in this particular situation. You're not using you messages that sound something like, well, you always do this, or you all think this, or no, it's more, my perspective is, I think blank, 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 I feel such and such, my values are such and such. And so that person B would share their perspective. And the intent of that interaction is just to share perspectives, and hopefully by doing so, get a better understanding of where the other person's coming from. Sometimes people change their perspectives, but that's not really the goal. The goal is to understand the perspective and therefore bridge the communication.
Okay, was there a second P in there?
Yes, pivot and perspective.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so perspective is the second P. Okay, gotcha. Well, that's really cool. So, so what you do at the Helling Library, do you more train people how to do this, or do you actually hold the conversations?
Well, most of the people that are there have heard something about LAP in the first place. But we always start off, because it seems like every month, again, we've been doing this for a year now, there's always new people. So we try to do a brief explanation about what LAP is. It's a simple thing, really. It's simple, but not that easy all the time. And when it gets difficult is when people get emotionally involved. And that's very natural. That's a human thing. The question is, what do you do in that situation? So at the Madeleine, what we do when we meet is we have an opportunity to have people share, if they want to, about when they've actually used LAP in real life situations, or they may share an issue that has been driving them crazy, or something that they just don't really understand. And that group is made up intentionally of, we try to get half people on the left and half people on the right. Right now, I think we started off about 50-50, and now it's about probably 70-30.
Okay.
But it's really important that we have people that can share both sides.
Gotcha.
And so what we do is then we have a conversation. Sometimes we do it in the larger group where one person would talk and another person would practice lap. And then after that person shares their perspective, maybe someone else in the group would practice with that. So it's a conversation that wanders from different people.
Gotcha. So I'm going to cut you off there. We need to cut to commercial, and we'll be right back.
In Nevada County, women are making a difference. Whether it's advocating for change, empowering others, or shaping our community's future, the League of Women Voters of Nevada County is here to help you get involved. With nonpartisan voter education, advocacy, and a commitment to a stronger, more informed democracy, the League empowers you to take action and make your voice heard. Join us today at lwvnevadacounty.org. Be the change. Be the voice. Together, we can make a difference. Your voice matters.
Welcome back. My name is MaryJane Hunegart, and I'm here with Jeff Kirishian of Braver Angels, and we're going to resume our conversation. So you were just describing to me what it's like to meet at the Madeline Helling Library with the LAP group of Braver Angels, and you explained to me a little about what that acronym means and what those meetings look like. So, you were describing the recent composition of the group that's there. You're saying that you started out really mindfully trying to get a 50-50 split between right and left, and it's kind of moved to 70-30. So tell me the nature of the conversations that have been happening, and also I would love to know how they've been changing, especially with the new presidential politics that are happening right now.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, it's a good question. Usually what happens is, it's an interesting thing. I mean, personally, I've noticed that I've changed. And what happens is when people really know, there's a trust that happens. There are, we have these things called the Braver Angel way, and it's kind of a way that we treat each other with respect. The point isn't to teach people how to talk or do anything like that. It's more to help people learn to communicate. So that requires trust. And so what typically happens is now people will come and they're willing to share what they really think, and because they know that they'll be listened to, and they'll know that someone will actively, from the other side, will actively try to understand their position. So what it does is you can just sort of see people, their temperature kind of goes down, and they relax, and they become more free in sharing how they really feel about it. And then when people really share what they feel, it's this interesting thing. You get one perspective, you get the other perspective, and you start to see that, sometimes we're not all that different. We have the same values. We may stack them in a different order. Freedom of speech may be higher, and responsible spending may be, and that may change, but we really can see that we're not that different. And that's ultimately what bridges the divide.
Yeah. So this program we're about providing information to Nevada County voters typically, and this is just such an important topic for voters. So do most of your conversations focus on the presidential climate, or do you have conversations about local politics or state politics, or tell me what that looks like?
I would say that so far it's been, we try to talk not specifically about the particular president, but more in terms of what are their policies, and it's more, what ends up happening is people will share, to me, if we don't have, for example, freedom of speech, democracy can't work. So really they're talking about a value. And so when people start to share about their values, they start to see that really it's not something you have to give up. It's just something that if you learn to be able to appreciate another person's perspective, you know, a really good one is that freedom of speech thing, because people will say, yeah, I believe in freedom of speech. That's the most important thing in a democracy. And then someone may say, well, I agree that freedom of speech is important, but there are times when it's not appropriate that you just say whatever's on your mind. Well, when would that be? And so they have a conversation that way. So I'd say it's more, yes, we talk about what happens with the president and the administration because that's the administration that's coming in. And I'd say right now, I'd say in the last 2 or 3 months, it's become more emotional. People are speaking more from their heart than just intellectually.
Oh, wow. So do you see hearts and minds change much?
We see people not being stuck. You know, sometimes it feels so frustrating when you just don't understand how can people be thinking what they're thinking? But when you learn to have the kind of a conversation that you can really listen and understand, you start to understand their perspective, and that brings the temperature down.
Yeah.
You know, what happens oftentimes is we get flooded because we really feel like we're being attacked sometimes, even though physically we may not be, but emotionally we do. And we go into fight, flight, freeze mode. And when we do that, I mean, functional imagery now can show a person's brain when they feel attacked. The forebrain, which is the newest part of our brain, goes offline, and the primitive parts of our brain come back on, which are fight, flight, freeze, and we can't think analytically and critically if our forebrain's offline. So what's the most powerful thing a person can do to bring another person's prefrontal cortex back online is to listen and let the person know that you're hearing what they're saying. That drops the temperature, and then real communication can happen again.
Yeah. So let's say that one of our viewers are inspired by the LAP process, and they would like to hold a LAP conversation with friends or family members that they may really, really like to approach about a conversation because they see how different their viewpoints are, and maybe they feel ostracized from their families, or they feel like they might want to ostracize family members because of that, you know, or maybe create a separation, but they really don't want to. So they'd like to bring in LAP. They think, oh, this sounds really interesting. Maybe this would work. Would they just open a conversation and have LAP in their mind, or would they train their conversation partner on LAP, or how would that work?
Great question. And it happens all the time. What we advise is that they do practice LAP with easy situations first. Because it's, again, I said it seems it's simple in the process, but it's not, it's complicated, it gets complicated because our emotions get involved. So we try to have people practice it with things that aren't, you know, like, people have major differences like abortion. You know, start with something easier than that and practice it. And what you find is you don't need 2 people to be able to do it. It helps if both people have been trained, but what happens is when you do that pivot, the pivot part, you say, you know, I think you listen, that brings their temperature down. You listen, and then you say, you feed back to them what you think they're saying. It really helps them. And then when you say, you pivot, you say, you know, I have a different perspective. Do you want to hear this? Sometimes they'll say no, or not really, or they'll, yeah, sure. You know, you get a sense that they don't really want to hear it. That's when you need to just accept the fact that you made an invitation and it's been declined, and you leave it. And what happens if you do that is that person almost always wants to come back and say, well, why? What do you think? But that invitation is really an important part.
Yeah, and then they're not threatened because they're kind of keeping that door open.
Exactly. It makes a big difference.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So if one wants to practice LAP in a safe environment, they can come visit you at Madeline Helling Library. When do you hold your meetings?
1:30.
Okay.
1:30 to 3:30 usually.
Okay, what day?
Wednesdays, the second Wednesday of the month.
Okay, what second Wednesday of the month at 1:30 to 3:30?
1:30 to 3:30. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
2 hours.
And if they want to check it out on the website, where is that, a county website or is it Braver Angels?
There is a Braver Angels, but it's a national website, and that's braverangels.org. And again, there's so much going on there. It's really worth checking it out. We don't have a website here locally, although that's a good idea. We probably should have one. I'd recommend just coming one of those Wednesdays, and we'll get you on a list for email notices in case something happens we have to change.
Oh, I'd love to be on that list.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, great. So lastly, getting personal here, what is something in your career or endeavors that you're especially proud of?
Well, okay, so I came to Nevada County in 1999. My kids were going to a charter school, and they asked me, because I worked in schools a lot, to work part-time. So I did. And then after a while, the charter schools are public schools here in Nevada County, and they have to provide all the special ed services. But it's really hard for one little charter school to be able to hire psychologists, speech and language, nurses, all that. So they decided to join forces and create an organization that provided all those sources and would, in essence, hire that from that organization, all those services. What happens is it started off where, all the charter schools were considered stealing other traditional school kids. And after we'd been working at it for a long time, resolving a lot of conflicts, we started working together really well. So, after 4 or 5 years, we really were providing really good services. It turned out where oftentimes kids would be having difficulties in a traditional program, and we would invite them to come to, say, the Center for School of the Arts, and they would just blossom in that kind of and the other way around too.
So what you're telling me is that you were behind the formation of the Nevada County Charter Schools Co-op.
Yes.
Wow, that is something to be proud of. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's. I think it was a great experiment to see if it could be done, and I think it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, and I understand Yuba River was one of the first charter schools, and I think that the League of Women Voters had one of the founders of the person who advocated for charter schools initially in the state come and talk, and it's just kind of fascinating how it got started. It was kind of almost like a petri dish for new methods and such.
I tell people all the time, Nevada County, one of the blessings of living here is that there's so many options for education.
Yeah.
And it was not uncommon at all that we'd have one sibling go to one school and another sibling go to a different school because it matched their suitabilities better.
That is cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here, Mr. Kirishian. And if you have any want to find more information about Braver Angels, it's braverangels.com, I think.
.org.
.org. I'm sorry. braverangels.org. And I will see you next time with another special guest. Thank you so much for tuning in, Nevada County. And remember, when it comes to politics, if you're not at the table, you might be on the menu.
Yeah, right.
Talk to you later. Thanks.